Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our weekly update from Israel with Jinsa's three eminent Israeli military experts, Major General Yaakov Amidror, Yaakov Aish, and Amikon Norkin. We're delighted, as always, that they take the time, especially so late at night for them, to join us and share their expertise. As always, Jinsa continues to track developments in Gaza and in the broader region that have spun out of October 7th, and you can find those on our website, jinsa.org. We have a dedicated Israel at War page that provides daily updates, analysis, and recommendations on everything having to do with the war. But wanted to dive in today with our three generals to talk about what has happened, particularly in the last day or two, both in Gaza, but also especially in the north as it pertains to Hezbollah, and then perhaps what we're seeing, a broadening of the conflict, or at least a broadening of Iranian aggression with the strikes in the last several days into Pakistan. So, General Amador, perhaps I can start with you to give us an overview of recent developments and where things stand today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. The situation in Gaza is not different than the situation in Gaza 3 days ago, and the but is very important. The IDF now is changing the structure of the command and control in Gaza. There are still many forces fighting in Khan Yunis. They moved a little bit to the south, and this is the main job that still face the IDF relating to the need to gain control on the ground. It's the Khan Yunis area. In the north, and in a way in the center, the beginning of the mopping up is on place, and because of that, there is a change in the structure of the command and control. One division was taken out, other units had been taken out. For a minute, I'll speak about the reasons for that now, and the reshaping of the character of the war will take time. They have to change some, emphasize and to change the intelligence efforts and so on. But it's clear that within week, 2, 3, maybe, the whole character of the war will be different, and it will be more raids from outside into specific places and targets, and less fighting strong hold points, which is basically was ended. There is one area in which we didn't touch yet, but by the Air Force, and it is Rafah. There, the problem is huge number of Palestinians, probably 1 million Palestinians in the area. It's too crowded. Every operation there with ground forces will make many casualties, which we don't want. And that will have to wait till the end of this stages in the center, in the south, and then we will have to move the population from Rafah. And Rafah will be taken as well, and we will destroy Hamas in Rafah as well. The question which will remain to the day after is how to control the area under Philadelphia, under the border between Israel and Egypt, how to prevent smuggling in weapon systems and capabilities in the future. It is clear for us that under the ground and on the ground, that was the main area in which they smuggled into Gaza Strip a lot of capabilities, manufacturing capabilities, weapon system, and so on and so forth. So this is something that we are very concerned about, and we will have to find a solution, not tomorrow, but during the mopping up process. We are taking out forces outside the Gaza Strip because of two main reasons. One, many reserve forces are in duty since the beginning of the war, around 300,000. It's a huge number, and it's reserve forces. They cannot be forever. And the way to do it is to take them out of the war now, to send them back home, and to make all the preparations that can be called again in the future, if will be a need. But they cannot stay in service for longer time. The other reason, which is not less important, very much connected to what I said about the reserve forces, is to prepare the army for a war, mainly the regular army, for a war against Lebanon. We want to take them out to rebuild what is needed to be rebuilt in the system. Many people are missing. We lost many commanders and soldiers. There are lessons from the war in Gaza that we want to be sure that they are well understood by all the commanders and the soldiers, and there are some lessons that we want them to forget. So for that, we want to bring them to training inside Israel. The old good way of the British thought that that the war is corrupting the forces by lessons that are not good for the next stage. And here it's different front, different terrain, different enemy. Many things that were very good for Gaza are very bad for Lebanon, with all the differences. So we want to train the regular army and to release the reserve forces. And this is why we are easing the war in Gaza and moving from one stage to another with less forces which are needed there, and to change the structure of command and control. In Lebanon, there is no big change. It is the same situation as it was a few weeks ago. There was one peak when there were rumors that we killed Aruri, the number 2 or 3 in Hamas in Beirut, and Hamas wanted to signal to us, guys, you crossed the lines, and that's what they did in the mountain Hermon, but there is no real difference on the ground between the situation before and now. And the same is in the West Bank. The West Bank, we are continuing to arrest and to kill if there is a need, if they are not surrendering. Nothing was said. The big change is now the change of the structure of the forces in Gaza.
So let me pause you there, General Amador, and talk a little bit more about that. I guess the first question that I had when we saw the news that there was a division being rotated out from Gaza is, at least here in Washington, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of talk about how Israel needs to lower the intensity of its operations, it needs to lower the casualties, it needs to change how it's operating in Gaza. And I guess the question is, has the changes that Israel has been making in response to American pressure or in response to its own timetable and its own plans and objectives?
I think that it is a combination. When we hear the Americans, we take it very seriously. We try to see if we can learn something from their experience. If there is something that we can do to satisfy the Americans, which is not counter to our needs to fulfill the mission. And here, the fact that we almost finished in the center, and we finished in the north, and we are in the last stages of gaining control on the ground in the south, this is the schedule on the ground. We are not going to change it because of America, and we don't want to say that it is not the schedule because of America, just to say no. No, it fits the American view about the war. By the way, in almost every occasion, when we heard from the Americans what does not satisfy them, and we ask okay, what is your advice to do? We never had a good answer for that. I mean, we understand what Americans don't want that will happen, but they don't have good answers what should be done. And at the end, we have a mission to fulfill, and we will fulfill it. And you know, in Rafah, for example, when we will decide to go back and to move the population from Rafah and to conquer the place and to destroy Hamas there, we will bring forces back, and we will do it if will be a need. So I think that fits our schedule relating to the reserve forces and to what is needed for mopping up, and the need to retrain the regular army. And slowly we will have it in a process, because what we have in mind is that the decision about Lebanon is closer than in the past, because we cannot live in a situation in which we cannot bring back the 150,000 Israelis which left the north part of Israel, because they cannot live nearby a terrorist organization with the Radwan forces and the threat that might.
Thank you, General Amador. I want to get to Lebanon in a second. First, I wanted to ask General Aish about an incident that happened in Gaza this week, where we've seen that there hasn't been much rocket fire in a very long time. And then we had a barrage of 50 rockets fired in one day, reportedly from an area that had already been cleared by the IDF, and the IDF had just left. So I don't know if that indicates the difficulty of fully clearing an area, or whether operations sometimes are going to need to go back in even after an area has been cleared. But that was something that caught my attention. I don't know if you have any details you can share about that.
I think it's a very interesting tactical question, which I'm about to answer in a second. But we have to start by really understanding that the IDF is not present in every square meter in the Gaza Strip. It doesn't matter if there is another division or another two divisions. That's how it is in wartime. You can't be present in every square meters. By the way, the incident that you just mentioned, a few dozen meters from there was a whole paratroopers brigade that immediately after the launching got to the point, and together with the engineers and with the Air Force eliminated the rest of the rockets. But it doesn't have the same echo and the same publicity as the first incident, from obvious reasons. But in order to have a better sense and understanding, I would like to try and frame what I see, what I understand in Gaza and in the north in a different way. Regarding Gaza, to my opinion, after we have finished the phase of seizing the most important objectives as we see them serving our strategic goals, i.e. to eliminate Hamas as a fighting power and to save the hostages and bring them back, we went into the second phase, which is a clear-up above ground and under the ground. And that's what we see now in Khan Yunis. And there is no 100% blaze. People tend to think that you can achieve, full control on every inch. Even in Judea and Samaria, where we are active in the last 20 years, almost on a daily basis and every night, we don't have 100%. So I think it's a matter of expectations in that sense. It's the same situation right now in Gaza. After the seizing phase, we have moved to the clear-up phase, and we are there to eliminate Hamas as a fighting power, and again, to save the hostages which are still inside. This is the context about Gaza, and if you want, I can elaborate on that and about what we see in the north, because I tend to understand what I have seen with the division that was taken outside from Gaza for a few other reasons. Obviously, they want them to replenish. Obviously, they want them to refresh. But I think the fact that they were taken out from Gaza at the same time when we decided to accelerate and to push harder, Hezbollah have a reason. And I think it's a very clear signal for Hezbollah as well. It's part of the readiness. And to my humble opinion, we are in a different strategic situation after the last 2 weeks in the north. And everything starts from something that I've mentioned in our previous session, which is more than 111 days that more than 200,000 Israelis are evacuated and uprooted from their houses. And it's not only in the south, it's also in the north. And when we are thinking about the day after, we don't see them going back with an imminent threat at the other side of the border. So I think this is the broader context, and we can elaborate on that later on. But we have to be very careful here when we are analyzing Gaza, especially on the tactical level. We should not miss the broader picture, which is very much related to what is going on right now in the north. And I'm sure that Norkin can elaborate on that. Take a look at the Air Force, what they are doing in the last 2 weeks over there. I didn't mention Aruri or the commander of Radwan unit or the commander of the UAVs unit, and very sensitive targets that the Air Force have taken lately and attacked in Lebanon. But this is part of a new approach towards Hezbollah, and we have to consider it carefully.
Thank you, General Aish, for that important reminder about the strategic context. Just sticking with Gaza a minute longer, I wanted to ask General Norkin, now that we have entered this cleanup phase, as you call it, General Aish, and we are lowering the intensity of operation. The IDF is lowering intensity of operations in Gaza. What is the role of the Air Force in this current phase compared to the beginning? And is there a shift in the Air Force's focus, as General Aish was just hinting, from Gaza towards the north?
Oh, thank you, Blaise. As you all know, the Air Force in the first month was the main actor in the air campaign, and since the ground forces entered to Gaza, the main mission is to support the ground maneuver and to support the ground forces. It was the first mission, and it's still the first mission for the Air Force in Gaza. And I look at some of the questions that our audience wrote at the chat, and I might add that no matter what our American friends ask, we never manage such a long war with those characters since the last 70 years. So you cannot manage a war for 1 year at the same volume. You need to change the volume and to manage your forces between the different fronts or even inside Gaza. So this is the reason, part of the reasons for the changes that General Amidrou mentioned. Of course, our friends would like us to do some acts in the humanitarian activities, etc. And okay, it's good, but the main reason that we changed the way that the IDF is fighting now is because of our own reasons, because of the need to manage the forces through a very long time, very intensive fighting between many fronts. And the Air Force, with of course the intelligence, and the Navy maybe, is the main force that fight in more than one front from day one. But now the main front for the Air Force is Lebanon, because the decision in the Israeli government is to push a little bit harder, the Hezbollah, and to attack more targets, and to look after the high-rank commanders. So the Air Force attacked much more targets in Lebanon in the last week, comparing to the previous week. And today, a few hours ago, we attacked in Syria. And all over, every day, 24/7, we are defending our nation from the Red Sea, threats from Yemen, together with, of course, with the American forces, the British forces, and others. So, as we all see, the war, and you mentioned it in the beginning, is a multi-front campaign, especially for the Air Force. And in the last week, the Air Force acted more aggressively in Lebanon.
So, pivoting more to discuss Lebanon, the chief of the IDF, General Halevi, said, I think it was today, "I don't know when the war in the north will happen. I can tell you the likelihood of it happening in the coming months is much higher than it was in the past."
Yesterday. Yesterday.
Yeah,
yesterday.
He said it yesterday, and today the Israeli media published that the diplomatic activities are all till now. The answer from the Hezbollah side is a negative answer. So we understand that we should prepare ourselves for the next coming weeks. And if I might add, in the first 2 months, the American government support Israel with a lot of system, ammunitions, and others. And we, of course, appreciate it a lot. But this is time now, especially for JINSA, to declare that we need this support today, because the potential of war in the north is become higher, and we need the ammunition for our ground forces, for the Air Force. We need the American support to deter, first of all, and maybe to avoid the war. But if the war might happen, we should have it to win the war. So this is not the time to stop the American support and to keep it like it was in the beginning.
So I guess let me ask to that point, what are the considerations that will determine when and if there is a war? And it seems like so far, Hezbollah has been trying to maintain a level of aggression below what would trigger a greater escalation. There seems to be some sort of tit for tat understanding, with the exception of, as General Ice said, sort of the strike on Aruri and some of the commanders and a slight uptick there. It seems like there's been a steady level of friction, but not escalation.
Yes, but
is there a risk of miscalculation, or sorry? Go ahead, General.
No. The war is not. If it will be a war, not because of miscalculation in the present situation. Is a decision that should be taken how we change the situation, because we want to bring our people back to the north part of Israel. It's not because we or the other side is going out of the line that was demarked by systems in the last 100 days. It's not connected to what is going now on the ground. It is, will Hezbollah will remain with its special forces on the ground there? So how we can bring back our people to their to the settlements and their home in Kiryat Shmona and other places. The war that the chief of staff spoke about is not because of deterioration in the operations around the defense.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, Aish.
so from
Okay.
1 week to another, both sides learn each other. So we learn how Hezbollah act and react, and the Hezbollah learn about the IDF activities. So the chance for miscalculation, as Amidror mentioned, is become even lower now. So it's only a matter of decision.
I'd like to offer a different perspective on that as well. I think there is today, especially now, an asymmetry with the different strategic goals of every side. If at the beginning Hezbollah thought that he'll be able, to control the flames by showing solidarity or, launching from here, shooting from there, and that will be more than enough for him. We are in a different phase. On the Israeli side, it's no longer a matter of a rocket or an anti-tank missile. It's a matter of 150,000 Israelis outside of their houses. And that's the asymmetry here that might lead us to different considerations. Hezbollah might think that he can control it. He can decide to what level of escalation we are about to go in. And on the other side, that's what we are trying to explain him with air power and some other capabilities. And to my opinion, it can lead to either a full-scale war or a limited operation in Lebanon, just because we have different strategic goals. It's not a matter of understanding. It's not a matter of miscalculation. It's a matter of asymmetry with strategies. Hezbollah entered it for a different reason, and we found ourselves in a situation which is a strategic and a national situation which we never faced since Israel was established as a nation. And that's why I think it can drag us into a situation which not necessarily we have chosen to be in.
If there is a war because of the need to solve this asymmetry, what are the objectives that would rectify the asymmetry and return, return security to Israel's north in a way that allows the hundreds of thousands of civilians that have had to leave their homes to come back? Is it just pushing back the Radwan? Is it having to degrade significantly Hezbollah's arsenal of rockets and missiles? Is it something more? And what are the operational implications of different objectives?
Well, definitely the strategic goal is going to be to create a situation that will allow the residents of the north to be back safe and secured into their houses and to go back and to farm the lands. That would be the strategic goal. The ways to do it are pretty wide, and it's something that I'm sure that in the IDF they are considering. But it's a great opportunity to say that it's not the scale that we have seen in Gaza. It's going to be 10 times stronger, and it's going to be devastating. And I'm joining General Norkin in his call to make sure that Israel is fully supported, not only at the diplomatic channels, but also in the channels of material and some other stuff. Everything is going to be here very, very relevant. And I'm not sure that it's only up to us when it's going to happen.
General Norkin, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that the Israeli interest is not to push to a full-scale war, because we want to have our people back in their houses without any threat from Lebanon, especially from the special forces of Hezbollah. We understand that Hezbollah got tens of thousands of rockets and missiles. There is no question. And this is not the threat that the people from the Israeli side of the border speak about. They speak about the threat of the special forces. Till now, some of those special forces already moved to the north. but we need to keep push them, and we cannot accept any of them near the border. And part of the asymmetric situation now that General I mentioned is that we achieve a lot of tactical achievements. We killed more than 160 Hezbollah soldiers, and we destroy many headquarters and facilities, infrastructures, and weapon systems, but we didn't achieve the strategic goal to push Radwan and to be able to declare to our citizens that they can go back to Kiryat Shmone, Metula, Shtula, and all the other villages. So this is the situation. I think that there is still a way to the war line. We talked last time about the war line. There is still a way to do. And I think that we should do it and should be act in a little bit more aggressive. Together, the other hand, with the diplomatic activities, with the international community support.
So, given everything that you've just laid out about the potential need to act in the north, and the comments that the Chief of Staff Halevi made yesterday, how are we to understand reports that also came out recently that Prime Minister Netanyahu has promised the United States that there won't be any major attacks against Lebanon, and the pressure that the United States is putting on Israel not to act in the north?
Well, I think that the pressure is not to push the area to a wider war. This is the main issue.
I think that if I don't know about any new commitment of the Prime Minister of Israel. That was commitment which was done in the first week of the war, and it was connected to something totally different. If Israel will open a second front, it's not connected to the present situation in Lebanon. Now we are giving the Americans all the time and what they need to achieve diplomatic success in Lebanon. And the question will be on the table, what should be done if they failed? I'm not sure that the Americans will be happy to go to another war in Lebanon, but the question will be, okay, what we can do to change the situation on the ground, which allow us to bring back the Israelis to the north part of Israel. So the commitment which was done in the first week is not relevant now. It's a totally different situation. And now the question is what price Israel is ready to pay, because my assessment is that we cannot change the situation on the ground without a full war.
It's a very sober assessment, General Amador, and a very serious one. Let me also ask about the broader region, because in recent days we've seen continued U.S. strikes on the Houthis in Yemen and continued Houthi attacks on shipping and potential launches towards Israel as well as Iranian ballistic missile launches into Iraq and strikes in Pakistan. How do you see the broader conflict with Iran evolving, particularly if there's an Israeli war in Lebanon?
I think that the Iranians signaled to Israel, guys, we have missiles that can reach Israel, by launching the missile into ISIS base in Syria, which is the same range to Israel. And it was very accurate hit. And the lesson that we should learn is that, yes, the Iranians have today the ability to reach Israel with very precise ballistic missiles. The fact that the Iranians are very active against Pakistan and against the Americans in the Gulf and so on and so forth, with all due respect, I wish Pakistan and Iran to continue the war between themselves. It is not our interest. It does show how aggressive Iran is, because Iran didn't face any challenge in the past. No one tried to stop Iran. No one tried to show Iran that there is a price to its activities. The Americans didn't make it, and the Americans are not doing it today. Not everything should be on the hands on the back of Israel. We should not do the job for the whole world. There are enough problems that we are facing, and we have to solve it by ourselves in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Syria. Iran today is not our main business. It might be after we will finish to deal with our enemies around our borders. Part of them had been built by Iran to make what they are doing. To make what they are doing today, that Israel will be busy with itself and not will be busy with Iran. I don't understand the logic of the Iranians relating to what they are doing with the Houthis in Bab el-Mandeb, because it was well understood the Americans that will have to react. How far the Americans are ready to go, I don't know. And again, Bab el-Mandeb is not our main problem on the plate. We have others. So the international situation is not good for us, because the other side is gaining respect and readiness to be more active. And this is very bad from the Israeli point of view. But again, we have to focus ourselves on the issue of Hamas and the issue of Hezbollah. It's big enough.
Thank you, General Amador. General Aish.
I'll start with your question about Iran and the Houthis and all the rest. You know, from the Israeli perspective, when you are considering Iran's capabilities, you have to consider Hezbollah. And if you are considering or analyzing it in terms of impact, it's definitely Hezbollah. I'm not diminishing or pushing aside the Iranians' capabilities, but consider it related to what Hezbollah have to offer. I think Hezbollah is the issue. And once you are eliminating or degrading those capabilities, Iran is quite limited. This is regarding Iran and Hezbollah. Regarding the Houthis, to my opinion, what the Iranians did is a very grave mistake, because by activating the Houthis, they have given an open invitation to the US and to the international community to come after the Houthis and after them. And, you know, for Israel, it's not as important as it is for the international community, nor as important it is for Egypt. With all due respect, 5 to 7% of our commerce is coming from there. I think General Amador spoke about it 2 weeks ago. And in that sense, I think it was a very, very a grave strategic mistake that they did. Having said that, and going back to the North, you were asking about the US request to allow the negotiation to reach a level of fruition. I think we should look at it in 2 ways. One, obviously, is to allow the diplomatic channel with genuine aspiration that it will solve the problem. Having said that, at the same time, we have to be ready, and I'm going back to what General Norkin said. We have to be ready for a total failure of this diplomatic channel. And this is a great opportunity to draw the attention of our participants here to what we have published in the last 5 years, every month, every 2 months, about the importance of the US prepositioning over here of relevant munitions on the Israeli assault that can save time and effort in case these munitions are needed. And I'm saying it just as an example to how important is the analysis that Blaise, you and the other colleagues did and published about that issue. and with some other issues as well. And I urge our participants to go back to our website and read it.
Thanks, General Ice. General Norkin, staying with the theme of Iranian aggression, do you see U.S. airstrikes against the Houthis being sufficient to send a signal to the Iranians to stop, or do you see more of this continuing?
I completely agree with Aish that they did a huge mistake and did well. The extra step that they took was a huge mistake for them and a huge opportunity for the American forces here in the Middle East to project power. All our neighbors, all the nations in the Middle East are waiting in the last few years to see how America project power against those forces. And now this is a very good opportunity because the Houthis' capabilities are limited. Although they attacked in the last 3 days 2 American ships, and I think that we should continue attacking them, the camps, the missiles, the launchers, the headquarters, and by that to avoid any threat in the Red Sea. Although the import to Israel from the Red Sea is between 5 to 7%, the price of container now in Israel raised from $2,000 to more than 10. So it's 5 times. So there is an effect in Israel, not a huge effect, but effect. It's, of course, affect Egypt much more and Europe and others. But I think that we should take this opportunity. We should destroy the Houthis' capabilities. And for the American forces here, it's a very good opportunity. And by that, they can achieve the right place for America in the Middle East.
Thank you, General Norkin. Let me turn now to some of the questions we've gotten from our audience. And for those who haven't yet submitted questions, let me remind you that you can do that using the Q&A feature. If you type in your question, I'll pose it to our panelists. Let me start with a question from Jack Kraft asking, is there a conversation taking place, I assume in Israel, regarding cutting the head off the snake and just dealing with Iran? General Abendrohr, you sort of suggested that Hamas and then Hezbollah are the current dangers, and Iran might become an issue later, but it isn't now. But maybe you could explain some of the strategic logic behind that approach as opposed to going straight for Iran.
Tehran is 1,500 kilometers from Israel. The meaning of attacking Iran is a huge war which will be done only by the Air Force. Israel does not have any ability to put boots on the ground. And it means that the Air Force will be very busy with Iran with little ability to support the ground forces either in Gaza or in Beirut. The efforts should be done in a way that you have consequences at the end. It's not just to attack for attacking. It's not a reason. For that, you need a huge capability to bring Air Force capabilities into Iran. And again, it's 1,500 kilometers from Israel. We don't have carriers to do it. We have to take off in Israel and to make whatever is needed in Iran. Today, when Israel is very busy with Hamas and might be very busy with Hezbollah, tomorrow it will be a huge mistake to open a third front. And we have to understand our limitations. Israel is a state of 10 million citizens. The burden of security is on soldiers or shoulders of only 6 million people. We cannot allow ourselves to open the third front now. It will be a huge mistake.
General Norkin, let me ask you a question from Dennis Mosabian. If a full-scale war starts in the north, considering the arsenal that Hezbollah has, is there either an expectation or a need for the U.S. carrier group to aid the IDF forces?
Well, I think that if there is a war in the north, we should fight only by ourselves. There is no need for American soldiers to fight with us against Hezbollah. We can do it by ourselves, but we need the American support by more ammunition and more accurate ammunition, especially accurate like JDAM, to avoid collateral damage in Lebanon. If Israel might have active support from the American forces in Lebanon, I think it will be a negative parameter for our future.
Related to that, though, is there a benefit from having that U.S. carrier group present and from having a U.S. threat to be involved if the situation were to escalate by, for example, Iranian involvement?
Absolutely. I think that the American presence here is especially against any Iranian thoughts to do a direct activities against Israel.
Is there anything not American soldiers fighting in Lebanon or with Israel, but is there anything the U.S. can do in terms of providing air and missile defense assistance, given the expectation that Hezbollah conflict would entail a large amount of rockets being fired at Israel?
Well, as you know, we got a common plan with the American military how to defend Israel from ballistic missiles, especially from Iran. We already practiced those plans. So this is the reason that we need those systems here to defend Israel together, the American forces with the IDF against any Iranian threat. But from the north, today we can do it by the Israeli systems. We should all know that the threats and the activities that Iran did in the last week, it was not only missiles. They used cruise missiles. They used suicide drones like they did in Aramco 4 years ago. So we should all know that the Iranian industry, that they develop a very advanced cruise missiles and UAVs, is a real threat, as we all see by supporting Russia in attacking Kiev and by supporting Hezbollah that use those drones. And the last week, the Iranian cruise missiles and drones attacked those targets in some of them in Syria and Iraq.
I guess related to that, General Norkin, maybe General Aish, I think the big fear that many of us had was that after 10/7, Israel would face a true multi-front war, having to fight Hamas and Hezbollah at the same time. And while there obviously have been attacks from multiple directions, it hasn't been an all-out conflict. Is that possible to maintain, if sort of the intensity of operations dies down in the south and Gaza, Israel confronts Hezbollah? Is that likely to remain mostly conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, or what are the risks of a multi-front conflict unfolding at that point?
In terms of multi-front war, since October 7th, Israel is facing multi-front war. IDF soldiers are fighting in Gaza, fighting in Judea and Samaria, fighting at the Lebanese front, fighting at the Syrian front, fighting at the sea, mainly at the Red Sea, and there are some other places which I cannot elaborate on them. If this is not a multi-front war, I don't know what it is. However, we are asking about intensity, the level the level of involvement. This is definitely something that is changing from one sector or arena to the other. But bear in mind, especially after October 7th, there are risks that we can't take. So your readiness, the level of forces that you are deploying, the capabilities that are deployed are very vast. They are very wide. And I think General Amidro mentioned the fact that we are already more than 100 days in war, and we have hundreds of thousands of Israeli reserve soldiers recruited, and are fighting in all those arenas that I've mentioned, in the Air Force, in the Navy, definitely in the ground forces. They are the backbone of the ground forces. And we have not less expectations from them than we have from our regular soldiers. So basically, Blaise, we are already there. The question is only the intensity. And I'm afraid that it's not only, the answer is not only with us. We have to be ready in that sense to intensify those efforts in the different arenas.
And I might add that today in Gaza, after 100 days, we achieve a lot from the military perspective. And you can see that the amount of rockets that they launch every day toward Israel goes down dramatically. And the threat from Gaza now is a completely different threat. So we should prepare ourselves to other fronts.
So with that, let me perhaps finish with a question from David Musher, who asks, what is the possibility that one major successful strike against Iran will cause Iran to back down and tell its proxies to stop fighting Israel? Is there a silver bullet here?
Zero.
No. Iran is a real state. It's not a very deep sources with a very well organized military system. They have two systems which are very well organized. Iran is a huge issue, cannot be solved by one strike, not even with two, and not even with three. I mean, the Iran is a real threat that should be looked as an historic one. It's not a tactical issue. It's not about a war in which we can say we know how to destroy Hamas. By the way, we know how to destroy Hamas, and if we will have enough time, we will do it. The problem for us today is the timetable of the United States of America, not the timetable of the IDF. The other issue is Hezbollah. Hezbollah is 10 times stronger than Hamas, but still it's within our capacity not to destroy it completely, but the damage that we can make to Hezbollah is huge. Iran is another story, and we should not be under any illusion that can be solved by Israel by itself. We can take one issue, for example, the nuclear capacity, and say, yes, here we are building our capability to deal with the problem, and we will have the ability to do it. But if you speak about Iran, as Iran, no, it's too big on Israel.
All right. Well, with that, let me thank Generals Amidror, Aisha, and Norkin for joining us and offering, as always, their insights and their wisdom, and bid them a good night. It is very, very late in Israel, and we appreciate their time. Let me thank our audience for joining us for today's webinar. I encourage you to check out the latest at jinsa.org, as well as tune in for future webinars. particularly on next Tuesday, January 23rd at 9:30. We have exciting discussion between Ambassador Eric Edelman, counselor here at GINSA, and Representative Mike Gallagher. They're going to be talking about the U.S., Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, competing demands for the U.S. defense industrial base. Thank you again for joining us, generals, and hope to see you all next week. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Blaise.
much. Thank you very much.